So, we are back in the Belgian city. We're in episode 4. Episode 4. Last episode we did this area, which I'm really happy with. Yeah, I really love it. And we've got kind of this new look for the city, which I'm hoping that we can continue. Obviously, we do now have the British pack, which you can see in buildings such as these. But honestly, this game is getting really glitchy recently. I mean, that tram isn't even supposed to look like that. But as you may see, between episodes, I have done a little bit of stuff. So we now have an actual waterfront for a lot of this area, which I like how that turned out. We have the second fort, the second old fort of the city, and a grey box, and this new planned housing development, which I really like as well. And then we also have not much else. Yeah, let's go to the intro. So I had realised that we had like a huge hole in the middle of the city that I didn't do anything about. And yeah, so I decided to fill it in, but I didn't want to do a time-lapse because we've had so many of them and we're going to have so many in this episode. So before and after. So this area, I've noticed... done. What's he on about? It's clearly not done. So there's areas in Antwerp which have strangely geometric street patterns, and it's probably because of grand buildings. So in between episodes, I switched out what was here. What was there? Something was there, and I switched it out for this. And we now have this monstrosity. But at least the view line from the fountain here is a bit... I mean, it looks Italian, so I mean, what are we doing? But then I finished off that block. I finished off the outside of the block, the streets. This was the original planned development that I did. And despite being the original, it's still not finished as well. I basically didn't do anything in that time period. What I did do, we've now got an almost palace thing going on, like a manor, and they don't line up. The backs don't line up, and they don't as part of the game, which is really annoying. But yeah, so what? I did half a block. Yeah. But this area, so I'll show you on Google Maps. So, on the approach on the train going north into Antwerp. Wow, I didn't realize. Okay. On the approach going north, we've got a lot of actually really old buildings, and this area is basically the equivalent to what we're going to be working on. There's some pretty expensive looking buildings here as well, even though they're right by the train tracks. And I'm pretty sure half of these have spires as well. What, there's one at the end of the street, there's one there, there's another. That basically counts. But there's some buildings here which we could use the German pack for. We're in a pretty similar situation actually in the city here. So we're gonna do something similar in this area. Yeah, so I think I had to do proper row houses, and I made them a bit fancier than the ones in the suburbs. These sort of areas, they had kind of older solutions to mass housing because the populations grew rapidly. I mean, this isn't an essay, don't worry. But yeah, so they had some kind of big, almost social looking housing, like that one that I put on the corner, and that one. Unless, no. Yeah, Okay, you'll see. I'll explain everything later. So yeah, these streets, I kind of actually made them a bit fancy after seeing the really, like, big manors, or I don't know what the name for them are, but yeah, so those sort of houses. The corner, some of those one by, like, row house European buildings are such a pain to build. For this area, I think, yeah, so I literally just tried to copy the manor thing, but I feel like having so many of those white and red, like those buildings with the black roof, I feel like it gets a bit excessive, so it doesn't even look like they're separate buildings, which kind of ruins the effect, but I mean, it fits. And then here's the waterfront, which was so barren, but yeah, retrospectively, it turned out really well. I am quite happy with this area. I don't know how happy I am with the waterfront, but I guess it is an industrial city, and I wanted to at least get some bits of the river without the industry, such as in front of these. Yeah, so this almost feels like a continuation of this shopping street, because we have basically a winding street which goes all the way from kind of here, and it continues and it goes down all of these different ways. And this seems like it might have been like the original way out of the city. And then obviously the highway was here, but maybe it wasn't. But something happened and the street instead goes down here. And then in this area, it was probably bombed or something. So they built... I don't think this is a hospital, so let's get rid of that. But yeah, then they built that instead. But in this episode, I think I want to try something else. I think it's time to walk across the river, specifically over here, and we're going to try some different types of suburbs. So, again, looking at Antwerp. Also, the industrial key kind of does make sense. But, again, when we look at Antwerp, on the opposite side of the river, which will probably be our best source of inspiration again, we have... How does the tram get there? We have a lot of these, well, buildings which really look like the English pack buildings. I'm sure... I didn't actually plan this in advance, but yeah, these buildings are essentially the English pack buildings, ironically. And the entire side of the city here is very planned. It's all in a grid. What they also do have is, like, commuter towns, like small actual historical towns where the original kind of other side of the river was. But I think in this area would be a good place for one of those commuter towns. If we can bring the train from down here up and across the river, and then have the town up there. And I don't want to obviously copy the city too much, because that's a bit excessive. But I think we could have like a smaller scale version of the ugly suburbs here. And then we can do like proper towers here, especially since we already do have some towers on this side of the city. So... Okay, so that's this section here done. So obviously, I had to kind of reorder the towers, because from the other side of the river, I didn't really want them to be too tall, because in Antwerp, like, actually, when you're on the waterfront, you can see the apartment blocks on the other side of the river, but they're mostly covered out by the trees, but these ones probably are a bit too tall, and I would do the asset thing, but it's broken for me. I noticed in the other side of the river, they kind of just didn't care whether it was office buildings or if it was apartments, so I kind of tried to mix them. But, yeah. I'd prefer to live in the city. But the alternative to both is this little commuter town that we're building here. This one, I think, you know what, I think I use too many French buildings in the city, because the bright blue roofs, they stick out so much, and it kind of really gives the wrong look. I think, yeah, but This community town, it's basically like a smaller version of the big city. I didn't really know where I wanted this older area to end. I didn't know if I wanted it to fill the entire, like, inner blocks. This corner was so annoying to build. What did I end up doing? Alright, okay. Yeah. Then we did another one of the weird winding sidewalks, like concrete. What are the concrete aprons? I made a lot of these triangular squares. They're kind of the only way that I know how to handle triangular areas. If we had statues, it would be able to help with a lot of areas. The trees were good. I think the trees fit in this area more than they fit the suburbs in the other places. I think, yeah, I messed up. I made half of the sides fully grown and the other... Oh no, okay. Okay, so that's the start of this town, and I think for the suburbs we'll do something kind of similar to this. Obviously, that suburb's bigger than the entire town, but if we do something similar with like kind of smaller buildings, and if we keep kind of the red palette to kind of distinguish them. But for now, I think that's for another time. We do have now a train connected, but what I want to do is just finish up what we started over here and actually get like this block done. So yeah, I probably should have done this in the start of this episode. I probably could have just edited them together, but I think there would be too many spoilers of the other side of the river. This area I really like how it looks. And it like really fleshes out the city. There's the French buildings again. I made this arcade. I guess arcades are probably more French than Dutch. But I wish, to be honest, Paradox or Colossal Order, I wish that you could place like some of these buildings and then raise them or lower them and have them still functional without conforming to the without terraform conforming or whatever. And then also not have to have all of these connections. And I guess, then how would they be functional? But I guess, well, actually, I'm kind of wishing for something that can't exist. This area, I tried making an arcade, and it was kind of like a mini shopping centre. So those were like the shops sticking out the back. But you can't really see it because of the trees in front of it. The German row houses, they fit really well with kind of that cream colour. But whilst I was working on this corner, I'm waiting for it to happen. Yeah. So everything just disappeared, which was like the third time it happened. So even after all of those glitches and crashes, we still have a finished product. The city looks... We've got a really long city. It's not really... Yeah. We've got a huge gap in the middle. But yeah, let's go into cinematics.